Hi, I'm Carol George. Welcome to Off the Page. In this series, I'm going to be talking to lots of interesting Penguin authors about their books, their writing, and their lives. Monica McInerney, Australia's best-selling female novelist. You probably know a lot of her books, Alphabet Sisters, Those Faraday Girls. Monica grew up in the Clare Valley in South Australia, but lives in Dublin. Luckily, she comes home lots, and I met up with her recently in Castlemaine, the setting, or one of the settings at least, for her fabulous new book, At Home with the Templetons.
She'd never been to Castlemaine or the Goldfields area before. She'd never even been to Victoria. But something happened as she and Tom drove into the town late the following afternoon. The light was beautiful, soft and golden, warming the old stone buildings that lined the wide main street. Following Tom's directions to turn left here, turn right there, go in this or that direction, the more she saw, the more she liked. The architecture was so varied, everything from a large market building with columns and statues that looked like it had been transplanted from Italy, to an Art Deco theatre, even several extraordinary gabled and Gothic churches. They drove down tree-lined side roads, past a cheerful-looking primary school, plenty of shops, a swimming pool, even an impressive art gallery. Because that's such a precious one to be working with too, isn't it? Wouldn't you think? Yeah. Well, it begins in the Victorian goldfields in Castlemaine, and I had a fantastic week to 10 days here, driving around, auditioning different areas of the goldfields, deciding where it was going to be, where I was going to set my stately home, my Templeton Hall. So this is Buddha, and this is where John and I came last year when we were researching the book for the first time. So I'd been to historic houses in Ireland and in England, but this is a really important historic house here in Castlemaine. So the idea for the book came from my childhood, and I know exactly what the seed for the whole book is. I grew up in the Clare Valley in South Australia, and it's a beautiful area of vineyards, and the most unusual building in the whole valley is a place called Martindale Hall, which is a beautiful historic mansion. And I was fascinated by that house when I was a child. My two older sisters knew the caretaker family, and so when I was about 10 or 11, they'd come home with all these stories of what it was like to be there after hours. And so ever since then, I've always had this fascination with stately homes, but not to visit them so much, but to what happens behind the scenes. So with At Home with the Templetons, by creating my own stately home and doing whatever I liked with it, it was absolutely doing what I wanted to do as a child. One of the great things about when you're researching a book and you come to a place like this, to see the garden here actually gave me an idea that Hope, the sister in the book, would be a garden designer, because I could see the beauty that would add to a stately home, and I hadn't thought of that beforehand. So you do pick up plot ideas for the novel even when you're doing the research.
At Home with the Templetons is about two very different families. Tell us a little bit about them and why you chose that particular kind of family.
Well, all my books feature families in some degree. I'm absolutely intrigued by family life and the dramas and the layers. And what I've done with previous books is focus on one family, and you really get to know every member of that family and get to dig through the layers with them. And with At Home with the Templetons, I wanted to do two contrasting families and bring them into each other's orbit, two very different families. So the Templetons, from the title, are almost a bohemian family, a family of 7 who arrive out of nowhere and start running the stately home as a kind of living museum. But what I wanted to do is have somebody, a smaller, very different family, watching them from outside and then slowly bring them into collision with each other, with good and bad consequences. Whereas some of the other stately homes I visited when I was researching were really stiff. Yes. And you never got the sense that anybody would actually have a life in there. And what I wanted to do was create a house that was that living museum, but also, as soon as the doors are shut, it just turns into family mayhem. Yeah. And this really helped me realise, yes, you could have both of those elements. Yes. I just loved doing that contrast, and as I said, to bring them in and see what happens when those two worlds meet. It's good to come back and see them, you know, when the book's all written.
Yeah.
And you see, oh, I did use that little bit, or I used that little touch.
So where to next?
The lookout, so we can see over all of Castlemaine to get the whole sort of landscape
All
feel.
How do you audition a place?
I just look around. I feel like a location scout for a film company because, well, one is I'm about to make up the whole story in my head anyway, and I write very visually. And when I'm on any sort of research trip, you're constantly kind of casting a town in a way. And as soon as I came to Castlemaine, it was a beautiful, very hot actually April afternoon, and all the stone of the buildings was glowing, and the trees were full of birds, and the verandas were the shadow cool places, and I just roamed around. I thought, this is where they're going to. This is their town.
You always depict Australian life with such warmth and authenticity, yet you spend a lot of your time, or a lot of the year, living in Dublin with your husband John. What do you miss most about Australia?
My family. That's that crisp early summer's morning. There's nothing quite like that. I don't like the heat, so Ireland suits me in that way. But there's something about early Australian mornings that I really miss, and I miss the birdsong. I really miss the sound of magpies.
I know you're a great cook and a foodie, so I was wondering, what dish do you miss most from Australia?
Pasties. Pasties with sauce. No, I should say something really gourmet, but it's pasties with sauce out of a paper bag from a South Australian shop, and the sauce runs all over your clothes, but I love it. It's a pasty.
At Home with the Templetons, I think, is a great family drama, but above all, it's a great love story. You must be a romantic at heart to write a love story like that. You must be.
Oh, thank you, Carol. It is a great love story, and it's not just a love story between two characters, though it is that, and that's what I wanted it to be. But it's also about the many other forms of great love there is. It's about motherhood. It's about different sorts of love within a marriage, and the shadow side of love too. Not just the joy that love can bring, but also the sadness and the mistakes you can make because of love. And isn't that what we all experience in many ways? And fiction should reflect real life. I think that the love story at the heart of the book will lead you through, but on the way through you're going to see lots of other different representations of love as well, and that's exactly what I wanted it to be, a book about the many types of love and the many types of family.